Your silence doesn't affect her until you shift from desperate to stoic. Bloom. She doesn't react when you go silent, and that stings. You pull away, expecting her to notice, to chase, to feel your absence. But she doesn't, at least not in the way you hoped. And suddenly, silence feels powerless. But here's the truth most men miss. Silence without strength is just emotional avoidance. Silence without transformation is invisible. And silence driven by fear, not principle, is simply noise. Section 1. Many men believe that going silent will automatically trigger a woman's emotions, that if they stop calling, stop texting, stop chasing, she'll suddenly realize what she's lost. But that belief is rooted in hope, not understanding, in desperation, not discipline. Silence only works when it's genuine, when it comes from a place of deep self-respect, not hidden expectations. If you're going silent just to get a reaction, you're not actually detaching, you're baiting, and she can feel it. Women are incredibly intuitive when it comes to emotional energy. She doesn't just notice your words, she senses your intention. If you're still emotionally tied to her while pretending to be distant, your silence feels fake, weak, forced, and instead of drawing her in, it pushes her away. Real silence, stoic silence, is different. It's not about absence, it's about alignment. It's not quiet for the sake of strategy. It's quiet because you're done performing. You're no longer speaking just to be heard. You're retreating to rebuild. As Epictetus wrote, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. True silence is not a tactic. It's a reaction rooted in inner power. It's stepping back not to manipulate her emotions, but to reclaim your own. And when that kind of silence shows up, when you're genuinely redirecting your energy inward, leveling up without broadcasting it, that's when your absence starts speaking volumes. She might not react immediately. She might even seem indifferent at first, but over time, she will begin to feel something unsettling, something unfamiliar. The presence of a man who no longer needs her attention to validate his worth. Still refreshing your inbox, hoping she breaks first? That's not stoic silence. That's emotional noise. If you're ready to go from silent and stuck to silent and sovereign, subscribe now. You'll learn how to disappear, not to be chased, but to reappear as someone unforgettable. Section 2. One of the most common mistakes men make when going silent is expecting immediate results. They believe that within a few days, maybe a week, she'll feel their absence, regret everything, and come crawling back. But relationships, like people, don't operate on countdown timers. When your silence is sincere, it's not about testing her, it's about transforming you. And transformation doesn't show up on demand. It unfolds slowly, gradually beneath the surface. Just like a seed planted in winter, the roots develop long before anything breaks the soil. If you're silently waiting, checking your phone every few hours, wondering why she hasn't texted yet, you've missed the point entirely. You've gone silent externally, but internally, you're still screaming for validation. Stoicism teaches us that true growth requires detachment from outcomes. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The moment you expect her to respond on your timeline, you hand her control of your peace. Here's what actually happens when you stop reaching out. At first, she may feel relieved. Finally, some space. No more tension, no more emotional pressure. But over time, if your presence was meaningful, something else begins to brew. Doubt, curiosity, uncertainty. She starts replaying past moments, wondering if you've really moved on. But this only happens if you let go completely. If your silence is paired with patience and internal stability, it creates tension, not the anxious kind, but the kind that quietly asks, "What if I misjudged him?" Let her ask, let the space between you stretch without resistance. Because if you fill that silence too quickly, if you try to force a response, you collapse the very power you were building. Silence is not a shortcut, it's a slow burn, and only those who stay still long enough will ever see the fire ignite. But this only happens if you let go completely. If your silence is paired with patience and internal stability, it creates tension, not the anxious kind, but the kind that quietly asks, "What if I misjudged him?" Let her ask. Let the space between you stretch without resistance. Because if you fill that silence too quickly, if you try to force a response, you collapse the very power you were building. Silence is not a shortcut, it's a slow burn, and only those who stay still long enough will ever see the fire ignite. Section 3. Most men believe that if they go silent, women will instantly feel the weight of their absence. But women process emotional disconnection in a profoundly different way than men do. While a man might immediately feel the emptiness when she pulls away, a woman often doesn't register the shift right away. That's not because she doesn't care, but because she's confident you'll return. She believes she knows your pattern. And if you've always been the one to break the silence, why should she expect this time to be any different? In the early days of your silence, she might feel peace, even relief. But as the days stretch into weeks and that familiar notification never appears, the cracks begin to show. Slowly, a quiet question begins to form. Why hasn't he reached out? This is where the emotional ripple begins. Women don't react quickly, but they reflect deeply. They don't chase after the first sign of distance. They watch, they observe, and only when the silence becomes undeniable, when your absence begins to echo in the places your presence used to fill, does the emotional impact truly land. And here's the paradox. Even when she begins to feel your absence, she likely won't show it. Not at first. She'll act fine, laugh in stories, post pictures, carry on like nothing's changed. But behind the facade, she's questioning everything. Doubt replaces certainty. Curiosity turns into longing. Her mind replays your words, your calm demeanor, the way you didn't flinch when she expected you to. This is the Stoic principle in motion. Non-reaction creates reflection. When you don't respond emotionally, you force others to feel their own emotions. And that's exactly what silence does when it's real. It doesn't create immediate panic. It creates slow-burning awareness, an internal unraveling. Let her unravel. Let the silence do its quiet work. Section 4. Silence without self-improvement is like a weapon without a sharpened edge. It might look powerful from a distance, but it has no real impact. Too many men go silent hoping it will stir something in her. But instead of using that silence as a sacred space for growth, they sit in stagnation, waiting, hoping, refreshing their phones like modern oracles, seeking meaning in unread messages. But here's the truth. Silence is not a message unless it's backed by movement. If you disappear but remain the same, nothing changes. She won't miss who you were, because who you were didn't change. The man who leaves and grows becomes a new force. The man who leaves and waits becomes a ghost. When you pull back, that's your moment, not to pause, but to build. What are you doing with the silence? Are you reading, training, reconnecting with your purpose? Or are you scrolling, doubting, and checking her status? Women are drawn not to the man who hides, but to the man who ascends. And here's the Stoic truth. Improvement isn't just about results. It's about identity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This silence is your chance to become, to stop talking about change and start embodying it. Because when she does look back, and if she does, she won't be drawn to the man who disappeared. She'll be drawn to the man who returned different. But whether she looks back or not isn't the point. You don't grow to impress her, you grow to outgrow the need to. Let the silence be filled not with waiting, but with becoming. Let your absence be fueled not by loss, but by discipline. And let her feel the gravity of what she once had, not because you told her, but because your evolution made it undeniable. Section 5, it's not the silence that makes her notice. It's what you become inside that silence. This is where most men get it wrong. They think the act of going silent is enough to shift the dynamic. That not texting, not calling, not showing up will, on its own, change how she feels. But silence without transformation is invisible. It blends into the background. What makes her notice is presence, not absence. The energy she used to feel from you, that steady masculine calm, that grounded focus. When that energy reappears, refined and elevated, that's when it stops her cold. It's not your silence she feels, it's your shift. When you walk into a room differently, when you speak with clarity instead of approval seeking, when your smile is calm, your posture tall, your mind undisturbed, that's when she feels something new. That's when she wonders, did I misjudge him? And here's the paradox. The more you try to be seen, the more invisible you become. But the moment you stop trying and start being, you become impossible to ignore. Women are not drawn to silence, they're drawn to mystery, and mystery is born from movement they can't track, growth they can't predict, a version of you they've never met before. This is what Stoicism teaches us, to act not for applause but for alignment. Epictetus put it simply, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Let your silence carry weight because your life now carries meaning. Let her sense your evolution not through updates or displays, but through an unshakable calm that says, I'm no longer waiting, I'm becoming. If she's watching, let her wonder. If she's silent, let her feel the echo of who you used to be in the quiet power of who you've become. Still posting quotes about loyalty on your story, hoping she sees it? My friend, that's not growth. That's passive-aggressive poetry. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom and start rebuilding your energy in silence. Not to get her back, but to get you back. Section 6, most men don't realize this. Chasing after her doesn't just make you look desperate. It confirms her belief that she holds the power. The moment you reinitiate contact after going silent, especially out of fear she's moving on, you unravel all the strength your absence could have communicated. What you're really saying without words is, I can't bear the silence anymore. I need you to validate me. And once she senses that need, the dynamic shifts and not in your favor. When you chase, you remove the mystery, you remove the tension, you expose all your emotional cards, and there's nothing left for her to wonder about. She knows how you feel, she knows you're waiting, and that removes her incentive to reflect, to feel, or to reach back. But here's the paradox. People are drawn to what they cannot fully access. It's human nature. The moment something is completely available, it feels less valuable. This is why pulling back, not as a tactic, but as a return to self, is so powerful. It creates space for her to reevaluate, not just the relationship, but her assumptions about you. And that space is sacred. You're not punishing her. You're not playing games. You're honoring your self-worth by refusing to give your energy to someone who hasn't earned it. This is Stoic discipline in action. Resisting the impulse to seek comfort in connection and instead remaining firm in your principle. Marcus Aurelius said, "You must build your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal." Chasing may give temporary relief, but it rarely builds a life worth living. Standing still, firm in your values, does. Let her come to you if she chooses. But if she doesn't, let that be part of your training. Not in heartbreak, but in becoming the kind of man whose worth is felt, not begged for. Section 7 absence is not just silence, it's a psychological event. When someone who used to be part of your daily rhythm suddenly vanishes, the mind doesn't just register the missing person, it scrambles to understand the void. And that's exactly what happens when you pull back correctly. When you're no longer texting her good morning or checking in just to keep the connection alive, she doesn't immediately fall apart. What happens instead is far more powerful. Her brain begins to fill in the blanks. She starts replaying memories, your tone, your touch, your stillness. She reanalyzes conversations she once brushed off. She revisits moments when you showed up, supported her, centered her, quietly but powerfully. The human mind doesn't like unfinished stories, and your absence creates an open loop. A lingering question: was he really that important? Or was I just used to him being there? And if you were a man of consistency, peace, and presence, she won't be able to close that loop. She'll revisit it again and again. But here's the truth most men ignore. Absence only matters if your presence had weight. If you were emotionally needy, reactive, or dependent, your absence won't create tension. It'll create relief. She'll feel lighter, not lost. Which is why who you were before you disappeared matters more than anything you do after. This is why Stoicism places so much emphasis on virtue before impression. Seneca taught, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." Don't suffer imagining how she feels. Trust that if your presence was powerful, your absence will echo. Let her hear it in the silence. Let her feel it in your stillness. And let your disappearance be a mirror she can't look away from. Still updating your profile, hoping she sees your glow up? That's not detachment, that's digital desperation. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom, and let's build a life so grounded, your absence feels like gravity. Section 8. At some point, if your silence is real and your energy is shifting, she may reach out. It could be subtle, a casual hey, a comment on your story, a question about something trivial. But don't be fooled. This moment isn't random. When she breaks the silence, it's not always because she's ready to reconcile. Sometimes she just wants to check if the door is still cracked open, if she still has access, if you're still waiting. And this is where many men fall back into the trap. They react too quickly, too eagerly, giving away all the power they've built during the silence. What they don't realize is how you respond in this moment reshapes everything. If you respond too fast with too much excitement, you're signaling that your silence was never strength, it was strategy. And once she senses that it was performative, the mystery is gone. Instead, pause. Breathe, consider the intention behind her message. Is she genuinely curious about how you're doing, or just trying to confirm that you haven't truly moved on? This is where Stoic presence matters more than ever. Respond if you choose with calm clarity. Be light, grounded, and detached. Let her feel your new energy, not through words, but through tone, pace, and composure. Avoid falling into old emotional patterns. Don't bring up the past. Don't demand explanations. Don't seek closure. You've already found your closure in the stillness. Now you're just choosing whether to engage from a place of abundance or fall back into scarcity. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it." This is your moment of response, not for her, but for you. To prove not that you've changed your behavior, but that you've changed your being. Let her reach out. Let her wonder what version of you she's now speaking to. And most of all, let her feel that you're no longer waiting. You're choosing. Section 9, confidence is not loud. It doesn't need to shout, to prove, or to chase. It simply is. And in moments of silence, real confidence becomes visible in its purest form. When your silence stems from inner peace, not passive aggression, it radiates a calm authority that speaks louder than any words. It tells her, "I am whole with or without your response." That message lands deeper than flowers, texts, or closure speeches ever could. True confidence isn't built in reaction to rejection. It's forged in the quiet moments when no one's watching. When you decide that your worth isn't determined on who stays or who leaves. As Marcus Aurelius taught, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do. Only what you do. During no contact, cadence is your greatest ally, not the kind that comes from pretending you don't care, but from truly knowing that even if she never returns, you will still rise. Because you didn't go silent to manipulate, you went silent to evolve. And now your energy says it all. I choose me, not because I'm selfish, but because I'm finally awake. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is ready to shift, ready to let go of the noise, the neediness, the emotional chasing, and walk a new path, the Stoic path. This channel isn't for those looking for quick fixes or attention hacks. It's for the few who are willing to master themselves first. Because the truth is, when you become deeply grounded, emotionally sovereign, and brutally honest with who you are, you don't attract chaos, you eliminate it. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom not just to watch content, but to join a movement of men reclaiming their power, rebuilding their identity, and rising in silence. You don't need to be louder to be heard. You just need to be still long enough for the right people to notice. Stoic Bloom. Transform in silence. Return unrecognizable. Section 10. All along, you thought the point of silence was to make her miss you. But now you know, it was never about her. It was about you. This journey has nothing to do with whether she texts back, apologizes, or finally sees your worth. It's about you seeing it first, about stepping back not to stir her emotions, but to return to your center, to remember who you were before you forgot yourself for someone else. And now you don't need her attention. You've outgrown the need to be noticed, because silence wasn't the strategy, it was the mirror. And what you saw in that mirror, the man you're becoming, is the reason she'll feel your absence, long after you've stopped thinking about hers. If this message found you at a turning point in your life, then welcome. You're no longer chasing closure, you're chasing character. And that pursuit isn't popular, but it is powerful. Here at Stoic Bloom, we don't glorify breakups or promise manipulation tactics. We offer something much harder and much more meaningful, the path of inner discipline, emotional clarity, and unshakable peace. I invite you seriously as a man stepping into his next chapter to join this community, not to prove anything to anyone, but to grow in silence with brothers who are done pretending and ready to rebuild. Subscribe, Watch, reflect, transform, and return as the man you were always meant to be. Because when you change your inner world, your outer world follows. Stoic bloom. Let them forget who you were. Show them who you became.